the FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, is the top customer of Koenigsegg. He reaches out to me and he says, look, I've got this really special project that I've been working on. Do you want to film it? So I go to the factory, and in the foyer of the new factory is what at first glance looks like a beautifully pristine Agera. And I look inside and it has the manual transmission in it from the CC850. So I'm like, so what's the engine? Because that ain't going to match with an Agera engine. So he opens the back up, and the engine of a Jesko with the suspension and geometry of a Regera, all in an Agera RS platform.
What?
Yeah, but it was one of the most profound driving experiences I've ever had.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Car Chat podcast. I'm Sam Moores, and with me today we have James Walker. Hello.
How you doing?
Very good, very good. This is like, I don't know, version 4 of the start.
Yeah, well, this is like take 4. We've been messing around a lot trying to get this rig and setup right, but here we are.
Here we are. Can you tell everyone where we are?
We are in our Koenigsegg dealership, which is called Koenigsegg London. It's in Kensington. And we officially opened the doors here in March this year. We have been trading for 12 months, but the physical showroom itself has been open since March. And it's been quite a journey to get here, man.
Yeah, okay. We were trying to work out when we last recorded one. I don't know. It's been a few years. And the fact we're now sitting in a Koenigsegg dealership that you're involved with in London, in High Street, Ken.
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, explain. Even I still even pinch myself, honestly. So let's try and think how far this goes back. So this is a combination of ingredients from both myself and my mate Darren, who is also my business partner in a few ventures. So on our side, we have been filming and doing various marketing projects and bits and bobs with Koenigsegg for the best part of 6 years. And so I've built quite a good relationship with Christian and Haldora and the Koenigsegg team over the years, totally on the YouTube content side. And on Darren's side, he went on a pretty profound client journey. And I think he is one, if not the UK's largest Koenigsegg client. And there was an experience that he had on his previous customer journey, which he wasn't totally enamored with. And we were just having a chat, and we were saying, there's got to be a better way. How do we go about doing this? And we sort of looked at each other and said, well, why don't we sort of have a go, as it were? And I wouldn't go so far as to say we were half joking, but it was one of those, we could if we wanted to, but we had lots of things going on. And then we ended up going up to the factory, and we were touching on the idea with a director at Koenigsegg called Tariq. And we were sort of touching on it. And it was really interesting timing because, just for some context, the last 20 years, Koenigsegg have made around about 300 cars. In the next 3 to 4 years, Koenigsegg are going to make around about 300 cars because they've just invested in an incredible new factory. They've announced the Gemera, which is their 4-seater hypercar, and they're making that in production numbers which they've never done before. So the Regera that we're sat next to right now, that was made in a production run of 80 cars. Yeah. The Jesko is 125 cars, and the Chimera is 300 cars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot more.
So in order to achieve that level of production, they've had to invest in a new manufacturing facility. And so we've sort of joined this journey right at the bottom of the J-curve of them, probably the first time that they've ever produced multiple different models all at one time, whereas historically, they'd always just made one at a time, and they were sort of very hand-built, bay-built, like single-built cars with like customization that was through the roof, and clients didn't mind so much if they took like quite a long time to come through. But when you're in the scale of building 125 Jeskos, and that's split between the Attack and the Absolute and this new 4-seater, things had to evolve. And so that's why they built a new factory, and that's how they'll be able to scale it much more than they have done. And so for us, it was a really interesting time because we thought, well, this is them entering a new chapter for the brand, and they'll be having new customers, new customer journey, and they'll ultimately need to be able to facilitate the sales, servicing, distribution, and client experience of more cars. And so when we learned that, and both Darren and I had fallen totally in love with the brand. I mean, they make some incredible cars, but when you meet Christian and Haldora and get under the skin of that operation and team, I think the irony of hypercars generally, not just Koenigseggs, but particularly with Koenigsegg, is what makes them so special is everything you don't see. And it's not until you start spending time with the team, how they engineered something, manufactured it, the trials and tribulations they've been through, that the innovation in them starts to become incredibly apparent. And so you buy into it so much. So yeah, we got on a super strong content journey, super strong client journey. And we just thought, looking at the ingredients that we've sort of pooled, we were in an interesting position to be able to throw our hat in the ring, as it were, and go, hey, hi, guys, how about this? And I remember it so well, going up to the factory in Anglehome and sitting with Christian and Haldora. And every time over the last 6 years that I've ever been up there, it's always been like, new cars come in, friendly factory tours, everything cool. And all of a sudden it was like Dragon's Den. It was like, okay, so now you're in front of us with a very serious commercial proposition. And we need you to prove to us if you're the right guys for the job. And then after that, it was a 2-year journey to get to the seats that we're sat in right now.
Wow. That's, of all the hypercar brands, definitely Koenigsegg is, for me, it's very, very, it's in the top of, I mean, there's not that many, so it's easy to be in the top. But when I think of, for me, it's like the story is really cool. The innovation is really cool. Christian's really cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool.
There's a lot of coolness in there. There's a lot of coolness. They it's funny. There's not many, if any, certainly in the last, sort of 10 years of the brand, cars that they've launched which haven't broken some sort of world record somehow. And you speak to Christian and their team, and they've never gone at the design brief of this car, we're going to set out to beat this record. They've beaten them off the byproduct of the fundamental ingredients and benchmarks that they're trying to achieve. So if you take the Jesko, right? So that thing weighs less than a GT3 RS with 1,000 brake horsepower more, and similar aero figures to a Valkyrie, right? So and that's come about by, well, why don't we push the boundaries and try and achieve this weight and try and achieve this power and try and achieve this aero? And just as the fundamental ingredients of that, lo and behold, it starts to beat records because it, but it breaks interesting records. So one that they did, for example, on the Regera was the 0 to 400 kilometers an hour back to zero again.
Yeah.
When they realized they could do that, it was during a shakedown. They weren't setting a record. They were just like, let's go and bed in the brakes. And then they thought, oh, crikey, that was pretty serious. So at that time, I believe the Regera got to 400 and was stopped before a Chiron had got to 400.
Yeah, that was that funny video.
Which is crazy.
That they did. Of,
Yeah.
I think it was like the time lapse of was it a Chiron getting 0 to 400 or something? And
That's
then
right,
they had
yeah.
a Regera going like 0, 400, 0.
Yeah.
And then they always, if you've not seen them, have a look on YouTube for one of the sort of POV views of this. It's always like the test driver's like, yeah, and you can just take your hands off the steering wheel. Like, I don't do it all the time, but like you can because it's super stable.
Yeah. I mean, he'll slam on the brakes from like 400, just pinching it with his fingers. Just sort of lightly holding the steering wheel. And I think all of these little demos, while it's fun for social media, they are actually a testament to just how well engineered these things are.
Yeah.
And so we just fell in love with it. And at that time as well, the channel, we deposited on a very early Gemera. This was back when they'd announced it as a 3-cylinder hybrid.
Yeah.
And so we'd sort of entered this, that was the first time that I'd entered into the client journey experience too. And so, it was just this really interesting set of ingredients, and we thought, "Do you know what, this is an opportunity for us to go and speak about." And lo and behold, they decided to put their trust in both Darren and I. And fast forward 2 years after that sit down, we found ourselves in Kensington with a Koenigsegg shield on our wall, which is wild, mate. It's just nuts.
Bonkers. The Chimera has evolved quite a lot since that first deposit.
Dramatically.
What was it? V6 hybrid or something? I can't remember.
It was a three-cylinder hybrid.
Three-cylinder.
It was a three-cylinder. So it launched off the back of the innovation of free valve, which is a proprietary engine technology that Koenigsegg have been developing for some time. And it was the first sort of homologated road car that they were going to launch this tech on. It also created a new product category because there's never been a four-seater hypercar. Like if you wind back to the closest thing to a Gemera, it's probably like a Panamera Turbo S.
Yeah, or like a Lusso.
Or something like that, right? So there's nothing remotely close to it. There's never been a four-seater Chiron, right? Or anything like that. And so they launched a new engine tech on this three-cylinder hybrid, and they also created a new product class, which was a four-seater hypercar. And that ended up sort of melting the car world, and everyone got fairly excited for it. But along that journey, they were also developing what became the 1,600 horsepower twin turbocharged V8 in the Jesko. And after about 2 years of development on the Gemera, they realized that if they created the Jesko engine with a hot V rather than external turbos, and they managed to sort of re-engineer the gearbox housing, which they ended up calling the tourbillon gearbox because the way it's shaped is just incredible.
Nice.
They could fit this V8 into it and wouldn't be able to compromise the baggage space. Because they like some of the innovations they came up with, they were like, okay, this thing's going to be, 1,600 horsepower or something, and you'll be able to take 4 people with 4 carry-on bags, right? And so it was this combination of practicality and like no compromise in terms of speed. And then they thought, well, we can probably fit this V8 in there. And then they launched that at Monterey Car Week as an announcement about 2 years ago now. And any of the Gemeras at that time that weren't sold out because it went from about 1,600 horsepower to 2,300 horsepower.
With a big turbo V8.
With a big turbo V8 and a light-speed transmission, which is the most incredible innovation. So light-speed transmission is technically referred to as a gearbox, but it doesn't have any gears in it. It swaps clutch sets. So it's got 3 sets of compound gears, allowing it to have 9 gears. But why it's special is it's about half the size, maybe less than half the size of a conventional twin clutch box, but it can deal with as much torque, if not more, than a single clutch. And therefore, it has all of the attributes that you want in terms of shift speed, but it's much less weight and it's much smaller. So the packaging of it, when this gearbox, or clutch box as the case would be, hangs off the back of the V8 engine, it still sits within the circumference of the rear wheels, right?
Right.
So if you look up the back of any supercar or hypercar, and let's just take a benchmark like a 720S, right? So if you look up the rear end of a McLaren 720S, the first thing you see is the back of the transmission case, which is kind of hanging out of the back of the diffuser. In the Jesko, it sits behind the exhaust in the circumference of the rear wheels as an operating, fully functioning gearbox that's capable of dealing with 1,600 horsepower. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I remember when it came out with that Geneva that wasn't Geneva.
Yeah.
And it's smaller and lighter than a 458 gearbox, but like can handle triple the power.
Yeah, triple the power.
And faster. And
yeah. And it also allows you to jump gears. So unlike a twin clutch box where it's predefined that you can either go up a gear or down a gear, with this you can go, if the RPM is available, you can go from 9th to 2nd straight away.
Yeah.
So it and I know I've seen comments in the comment section when I'm speaking about this that automatics have been doing that for ages, but it's a very different kind of gearbox, right? So this has the shift speed of something like a twin clutch box, and it can just go from ninth to second immediately and deliver all of that torque and all of that power and just like slingshot your organs into stratospheric space. So it's good fun.
It's an interesting. There's a conversation I want to get into about just even the choice to change the engine, because I think it's very like current for now. One thing you mentioned is they changed the engine, and in my mind, obviously, everyone that's spending this amount of money on a crazy hypercar wants a crazy powertrain, and like they would probably prioritize a crazy powertrain over super innovative current C63 4-cylinder, not selling at all. But you said they sold out. So what are you guys selling?
So our biggest problem right now is I'm not joking, have no new cars that
T-shirts
we can sell. So come on down and buy some merch. Yeah, I mean it's a really strange industry. So our allocation of cars we sold out of. So in terms of new chassis, the only options that we have is if somebody drops out or cancels their order between now and its unfolding, or Koenigsegg have launched something called the Legend Division, right? And they launched this at the dealer conference last year, which funnily enough, the dealer conference is coming up about 3 days as of filming this. And what the Legend Division is it allows you to take any existing pre-built Koenigsegg, send it back to the factory and do almost anything, right? So you can...
Similar to what happens with Pagani.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So you know how on Pagani, that 760 RS program was kind of born out of that. It's a very similar thing. So, while all of the new chassis are allocated to clients, you can sort of fill a degree of that gap by saying, well, if you have an existing Koenigsegg, or if you'd like us to source you an existing Koenigsegg, you can take that and go back and put your own stamp on it. So if you want new interior, new paint. What's also interesting about Koenigsegg as a brand is on their previous generation of cars, even when they've stopped the production on them, they don't stop evolving them.
Okay.
So
like a Gemera.
Yeah, exactly. So they'll come out and go, well, we learned this really trick stuff off the Jesko program. We're going to put that new infotainment system in there and this new software and this new suspension, and it's going to change the way that car handles and feels. So they'll often come up with updates, which is sometimes often led by a client who's taken a car in and gone, can we do this? They'll do it. And then they'll go, hey, if anyone else who's got an Agera RS wants that, then we can do it. Or even further back. I mean, they'll do a manual swap on you on a CCXR. Ooh. So you can take a car from 2009 that has a phenomenal engine, but a really old school, like semi-automated box, which at the time might have been okay, but today, if you've used a twin clutch or anything, it just feels super old school. So if you want to take a CCXR, you can send it back to the factory, manual swap, new paint, exposed carbon, new wheels, etc.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's quite cool. It's pretty cool.
What does that mean? What does that mean for values of older cars? In terms of, okay, if I don't know, were manual ones like a CCXR? Yeah, were they?
CCXs,
were manual
CC8s.
Were manual ones worth more than single clutch, or are they kind of the same?
It's super dependent on the customer, really. I mean, these things are they're so unicorn, each of them, right?
Yeah.
That they all appeal to each person. So, like, we've seen cars that have just been led because a customer likes that particular shade of orange, right? I mean, these are very unique cars. It's not like an F430 where there's like, oh, we made 12,000 of them that were F1 and 8,000 that were manual, right? This is like we made 2 in manual and the other 3 are automatic.
Yeah. And one is like
yeah.
light blue on, light blue on, light blue on, light blue. Like, do you like that?
Do you like
yes
that?
Or no?
Exactly.
Whatever, we'll change it up for you.
Yeah, exactly. So someone might go, I really would like a manual CCXR. And we're like, well, the only one we have, sir, is this one in iridescent pink.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. We'll take that and we'll send it back.
Send you
to the factory.
Small 7-figure sum.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. And we'll give you an overhaul and you can have your own car with your own stamp and touch on it. So
yeah, that's cool.
It's a bit of fun. So
it'd be interesting to see how that pans out over like the next, let's say, 10 years.
Yeah.
Of how like original in inverted commas, but it's so gonna, as you say, it's gonna so depend on what the original spec was. Like, will an original unchanged car just become a really rare thing.
Well, I know on the Zonda program, a lot of the donor cards were Zonda Fs. They made 25 of
which
those.
is the coolest one.
Which is the coolest one, right? But people were like, yeah, just take that to bits and make something new from it. And I think like there's a handful of original Zonda Fs now, and they are like crazy value. So I think, I guess the more you take out of a market which is already ultra rare, that is full of people that want something that no one else has, the rarer they are, the more sort of expensive they are.
But you may not want pink on pink on pink.
You may not want pink on pink on pink on pink. So then they'll go and just change it all for you. And it's back to the factory, and they've come up with all sorts of upgrades, right? So, I mean, the fundamental chassis and architecture of a CCXR, it's not a million miles off putting innovations that they developed on the Gemera program. So they can do, back updates, as it were. What date is this podcast going out? Because I got some seriously cool stuff I can share with you. It's going out on the...
Whenever you want.
Right. Okay.
We can go out in 6 months if you want.
Okay. Well, no. It doesn't need to take that long. Right. Okay. So here's an insight into a recent project which I filmed a couple of months ago that I'm still under embargo on. But if this goes out, I think just after the 5th or 6th. Right. So the FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, is, I think, the top customer of Koenigsegg. So he reaches out to me. And he says, look, I've got this really special project that I've been working on. You've been doing some really interesting things with the brand over the years. Do you want to film it? I'm like, yeah, sounds cool. I don't know what this thing is. He's like, just liaise with Christian. Tell him it's okay that he can tell you about this thing. And let's see if we can film it. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I speak with Christian and he's like, oh, okay, cool. Right. So I go to the factory. And in the foyer of the new factory is what at first glance looks like a beautifully pristine Agera. I think actually it was a delivery mileage Agera RS is what it was originally based on, I think. And we start talking and I look inside and it has the manual transmission in it from the CC850, right?
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I'm like, hold on a minute. So that's got a manual, and then he goes, yeah. So I'm like, so what's the engine? Because that ain't going to match with an Agera engine. So he opens the back up, and it's the manual transmission from a CC850 and the engine of a Jesko with the suspension and geometry of a Regera, all in an Agera RS platform.
What?
Yeah. So when I say you can send cars back and do stuff, if you've got the means, you can send cars back and do stuff.
Wow.
So, and this thing, honestly, I've got a video coming out. By the definition of this video, it'll be out by now. But it was one of the most profound driving experiences I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the reason being is it has a... So just backtracking a bit, the significance of the CC850 gearbox is that it was the world's first manual automatic. So you can go from a 3-pedal arrangement under your feet with an actual clutch and change gears with a 6-speed H-pattern box. With the flick of a wrist, you knock that over to the far right-hand side, and it then becomes a 9-speed automatic Jesko Lightspeed transmission box.
Yeah.
This car also had paddle shift. So a CC850 doesn't have that. It's only H-pattern manual or knock it over and full auto. This has an H-pattern 6-speed manual gearbox, an automatic 9-speed gearbox, or a 9-speed paddle shift box, all in the same car, right? And why it's profound is because when you have 3 pedals under your feet, you drive like a manual car. You just default to it. When you have a manual gear stick in your peripheral vision, you dip your clutch when you get to a roundabout. You just do. There's a gear stick there. But 3 seconds earlier, you could have been shifting using a paddle shift from a 9-speed Lightspeed transmission like you're driving a Jesko, and then you'll come to a T-junction and you'll dip the clutch and put the gear stick into neutral. You don't have to do it.
That's mental.
But it's there. And it was unbelievable to be able to jump between the two things. Now, why it was profound, check this out. And this is one of those things like the kind of chats that you would have with your mates down the pub. Like, oh, what if you could have a manual and an auto? Well, Christian's gone and done it. So this manual versus paddle shift argument as to what's best and what's right. On the road, even though I had the paddle shift option available to me, which is as sophisticated and fast as it is in the Jesko, 90% of my journey, I drove it as a 6-speed manual box.
Yeah.
And it was not a conscious thing. It was just, I wanted to drive it like that, which I found very interesting, that I literally had both options available to me. Like normally, to be able to do that, like if you want A/B split test, you would get into 2 different cars and back to back them and go, oh, which do you prefer? This was in the same seat on the same stretch of tarmac in real time, right? And 90% of it, I drove it as an H-pan 6-speed manual gearbox. And this thing had 1,600 horsepower.
I wonder how that would shift. That is such a cool scenario to be able to run through.
Absolutely
how
insane.
That would shift depending on day of the week, tiredness,
I
where
know,
you
right?
are, how long you've been driving for.
Totally.
All these sorts of things. Because there's times when you're like,
100%.
you know what, just auto.
100%. I mean, look, I was thinking, you know what would be great for this is driving around a country road, I'm fine stirring the box. And then you pull onto Silverstone and you knock it into Jesko mode effectively.
Totally.
And now you're on to paddle shift, right?
Yeah.
It's like insane. And then after your track day, when you're knackered, whack it into automatic.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable thing. Unbelievable.
Like, it won't happen, but this would be such sick technology to make it into cheaper cars.
I know.
Like the one that really sticks in my head would be something like a GT3 RS.
Be incredible.
Or obviously the GT3, any of those things.
Yeah.
Isn't, and this is not to like belittle the gearbox or anything, isn't it like it's like a fake manual?
Yeah, it's not a real manual. But you wouldn't know.
Feels like
you wouldn't know, right? So, I mean, honestly, I implore you to go and watch the video because, like, I've never seen my face like it on camera. You could see my brain working, right? But so I think one of the tests that I would have liked to have done, and this was an impossible scenario, but I would have liked to have not known how the gearbox works. I would have liked to have got in it and gone, "There's a manual," and just driven it. Right.
Yeah.
But because I knew how it works, I'm analyzing everything. Right. And I'm like, so what it's actually doing is it is a simulation, really, because this is gear by wire. When I say wire, I mean software.
Yeah.
Right. Which you would be more than forgiven for thinking that's going to suck. Like, there's no way.
Yeah. You're like, it's going to feel like some sort of sim.
Yeah. But all of the hardware is real. So when you're depressing the clutch, you're depressing a clutch.
Oh, really?
And when you're shifting gear, like all of that throw and weight and movement, that's all there. Like there's all this beautiful anodized billet, shifting mechanism is all on show. And it's all weighted by real springs, a real hardware.
Which then goes to like a...
then underneath just goes to like some little computer, right? So there's incredible amounts of very, very profound software engineering which is taking place. But when you find that clutch hump and that bite point, like you can stall it. So your brain's going, it's a manual,
so funny.
right? So if you get your throttle input wrong or you drop the clutch too soon, like it lurches forward like a manual, you know? Which is super insane. And the actual throw of the box and the weight of the pedals.
You can clutch dump it.
You can clutch dump it. But the most profound thing was heel toe rev matching. And the reason why it was profound was Jesko engine, which is in this car and it's in CC850, doesn't have a flywheel. There is no flywheel, right?
Right.
So when you rev match, the way this thing ignites is like fuel's being burnt by lasers, right? So it feels like you're in some formula tech, but it's manual. So you're like depressing this clutch, which is 100% to your brain, a real clutch.
Yeah.
You stand on these like unbelievable carbon ceramic brakes, and then you just roll your foot over onto the throttle, and like the world explodes because it's linked to something with no flywheel, and it's got 1,600 horsepower. And so you end up changing the gears for absolutely no reason at all, just for the giddiness of making this thing explode. And then the pops and bangs on the overrun are like, I don't know how this thing's road legal. Like it's unbelievable. And this is in CC850 and MBS's car, which his son actually named for him, called Chimera, because it's in mythology, it's something with 2 heads.
Yeah,
so
something like that. Yeah,
something like that. So absolutely profound. But that's a demonstration of the innovation that they have in house, but also what extent you can go to if circumstances allow that you can go and go, do you know what? That Regera,
that's really cool.
Let's put a Jesko box in it.
Is it then because it has no flywheel, and then presumably the revs then drop like a stone?
Yeah.
Does that make changing gear a bit tricky?
Well, again, all of the flywheel is simulated by software.
Yeah.
So in the real world, but before that they've applied anything to it, they were saying it is borderline impossible to manage this thing.
Yeah.
But they've managed it through software. So even the flywheel is a simulation. So there's this like software mass as part of the flywheel. Dude, I hope one day you get to experience it because it's so difficult to speak about it with any sort of authority because there's nothing to compare it to, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously I sell Koenigsegg, so everyone's going, well, of course he wants to plug these things. As it happens, lads, we're all sold out. So I'm not pushing the agenda here, right? But I know that Top Gear is also driving this car, right?
Nice.
So Top Gear will have a thing and I'll have a thing and let's see how it goes. But I found it to be profound.
That is
experience.
cool.
Yeah.
I would love this technology to make it somewhere into normal cars.
It would be so good. It would be so good. Man, I've got a forecast on Koenigsegg's future product journey, and it is can I swear on this podcast?
You can.
It's unfucking believable. It is unbelievable. So I would imagine that, that there's manufacturers I know are reaching out to Koenigsegg going, is there anything we can do? The problem with it is, and the reason that it can exist is because it's in a car that's like,
millions
and millions.
Yeah. So the one that I manufacture, I imagine, because I heard a rumor, and this is just a rumor, so no one hold me to any of this. I hear all sorts of rumors that Ferrari are doing a manual special SP whatever.
They need to do something to bring him back around again, don't
they? And it probably what it will be is like the LAF engine with a manual gearbox somehow in a car that looks pretty cool, and they will be able to sell it for like 5 million quid. They probably won't sell it, but it probably might be less than that.
Yeah.
And they'll sell out, and it will have no more technology than any car made in the last 10 years.
Absolutely.
But everyone will go, yeah, but it's got a manual in it.
You're like, yeah, they all had manuals back in the day. It's funny, this chat, and I think it's been amplified because of the era of automotive that we're in right now. We're in this sort of, yin yang of petrol heads versus electrification. And I think our appreciation for what makes us tick as drivers has only been amplified because of the suggestion or risk that it might be taken away from us, right? And I think that is actually driving the innovation. So in a strange way, I'm quite thankful for it.
Yeah.
Because I think if it wasn't for this pushback and this massive demand from the real purist drivers, I don't think we would have some of these things.
No.
So,
and I don't think it.
Cheers, Elon.
It's always like comes across as like petrol heads. I don't even really like that word anymore. Versus combustion versus EV, and you're like whatever, they're all cars. Like that's genuinely how I feel about it. And it's like there's a case for everything in the right time.
Yeah,
it has been interesting to see the market's reaction to all of these EVs, like the really fast, expensive ones. And it seems like the market's gone, but no.
I mean, I think on the one hand, they're incredibly expensive and there's so many options in that price bracket. Like if you take the Lotus Avaya, right? If you're going to spend the best part of 3 billion quid on a hypercar, I would imagine an electric one's probably not first on your list.
Yeah.
And so the appeal and demographic that appeals to is so extreme in that you've probably, you need to have every other hypercar first before you're going to buy that one.
I think so.
And you also then have to be in the niche category of an early adopter because EV technology is only going to improve. So, and I'm seeing these Gen 1 hypercars like a Gen 1 iPhone. I'm like,
100%.
Okay, well, that's it now. Where's it going to be later on? And I think if you're going to put 3 million quid into a Gen 1 iPhone, it's not going to be worth much when Gen 3, 4, and 5 comes out.
And it might be because they only sell two of them.
Yeah, it could be
in 20 years' time.
Exactly.
If they've done the iPhone thing.
Exactly, yeah. Well, if it's unboxed still in the wrapper. Or you could put it on eBay and get 60 grand for an unboxed iPhone.
There is a car in that space.
Yeah.
And there is some interesting stuff about this car. The McMurtry Spearling.
Fascinating thing.
It's sub a ton. It's faster than like
anything
on a track. Like anything pretty much.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Anything.
I don't think it's faster than an F1 car.
No, I don't think it's quite F1, but it's in the realms of mere mortals.
But they've
smashed as fast as you'll get.
I think recently they've broken the Hockenheim.
Yeah.
It's not even road car record. It's closed wheel record. So that would be that's like
Formula 2.
Yeah, or like LMP
sort of stuff. Yeah, it's serious.
Yeah, I presume Porsche and they're a mad one around there.
Yeah.
And I was chatting to Thomas the other day, and who's the sort of guy in charge of that.
Yeah.
And he was saying they have so they're on version 3 now of that car.
Okay.
And they've just put a 100 kilowatt hour battery in it, which if you look at general road cars is that's a big battery. That's the sort of size you might get in a big Tesla or a big Taycan or something. I don't even know whether they're that big in that. But the battery in their car weighs 400 kilos, which sounds like a lot, 400 kilos. The same size battery in a Mercedes, now obviously there's a price factor in this, is 800 kilos.
Wow.
So you go...
It can be done.
Well, it can be done.
It can be done, yeah.
And their electric car with a 100 kilowatt hour battery still weighs under a ton.
That's brilliant.
So you're like, that particular one car where they've gone, let's make it really light and mad. We've used technology that you couldn't use really in a combustion engine car.
Yeah.
If I had 100 cars and £1 billion or whatever, I'd possibly have one of those.
Yeah.
Or I'd go and test it.
You definitely want to test it.
You go test it and then you're like, thank you very much for that experience.
That's what I'm kind of thoughtful on, right? It's a funny one, isn't it? Like, so one of my takeaways that I've kind of, and this is mostly from a personal realization of what I like out of cars. So this isn't a sweeping statement that I'm applying to petrol heads, right? But I've stopped caring how fast cars are.
Yeah.
Right? I honestly don't care, because the reason for it is, if you're looking to use that on the road, well, the operating window is so high that you're either going to be in prison or through the hedge.
Yeah.
Right. And then on a track, these road cars are not track cars and they're too heavy.
Yeah.
And so you go through tires and they're slow. They're just slow road cars. So if you're caring about the speed of a road, something with number plates on it, you're already in the wrong arena, because there's a lot of other things. Just go buy a GT3 car. Right?
Yeah,
like,
if you want something fast on the road, like you're always going to get rinsed by the family in the Model X,
always
Super Plaid or whatever it is.
That's it.
And you're like,
no, for me, it's all about the theatrical engagement and feedback that I get out of something that I'm going to be able to enjoy on the road, which is something that I think we're going to see. I just think the Restomods space didn't realize how profound their timing was.
Yeah.
Because obviously, when say the likes of Singer started, electrification was like a buzzword. It was like, really, and now it's kind of trying to become mainstream. And I think the Restomod scene allows people to make cars that major OEMs cannot.
Yeah.
And they are the ingredients that the purists want.
Yeah.
And so they've just landed straight in the middle of this niche offering that seems to have exploded.
Apologies, we've had to end this episode right there because the conversation leads on to talking about Restomods, and James and I talk about the Boron Motorworks project and the Evoluto projects. But unfortunately, and sort of fortunately, we discuss things that aren't allowed to be public knowledge yet. So those parts of this episode will come out in the future, and they will come out when I'm allowed to put them out. So apologies. I hope you enjoyed that first bit, and watch out for the next ones.